This is Fam Electric Ghost, and we're live on the air with Avonley Lightstone for the first time. Welcome to the Fam Electric Ghost podcast. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Doing great. We love to talk to people live. That's the kind of our jam here. And this is the first time we're going to talk to you. We do like to talk to authors, and you have a book called The Strength of Scars that we're going to talk about. It's talking about generational pain into generational healing. We do have your links to your website and to your Instagram just to give people like a heads up if they want to check that out while we're talking to you. But before we get to the heart of your story, we always ask every guest a couple questions. What motivates you and why do you do what you do?
So, what motivated me was knowing that there's so many people that was hurting in this world. And I felt like my story can be an inspiration for others to work on their own traumas in their life and turn it into something that could be uplifting for them and other people in their lives.
So it's kind of paying it forward from your life experience, which is what
Mhm.
a lot of creative people do. This podcast I created to actually have creatives have a safe space where they can talk about what they do with their art or what message they're trying to get across. So the core message behind Strength of Scars, what's your core message behind it?
My core message around it is that every single person in this world has some sort of scars in their life, whether it's physical or internal, and that whatever pain you're going through, it's the scars don't define you. It's what you make of it.
I find that like I'm a creator, I'm a musician, and I'm a software guy, kind of left right brain. But what I find is music for me is very cathartic. When I write a song, I usually am working through some emotional issue. It could be emotional, sadness or trauma or something, right? Or it could be happiness, but it's some emotion. And a lot of what I find is creators are able to take these emotions and turn them into some creative form, whether it's a book or a painting or any kind of art form, a dance, like anything that's like in that creative space. Did you find it very cathartic to go through the process of creating your book?
Yeah, it was definitely healing in many ways, and it helped me to release a lot of pent up emotion that's inside of me that needed to be released in order for me to forgive somebody else. So yes, it really did help me get out of that headspace and really go into like a deep core healing.
Yeah, because your story is about kind of like a childhood marked with tragedy and trauma and abuse, and you lost your mother like in a fire, like a house fire, but
Hmm.
then you later on there was additional trauma.
Yeah.
Um, so maybe kind of start at the beginning. Like how did that trauma affect your life? Because like childhood, your formative years, if when those things get kind of imprinted on a person, and
Right.
then that ends up being like the filter with what you see the world because you're locked into these like loops of how you these things that happen, and sometimes it's hard to get outside of that
Right.
that that dynamic.
Yeah. So, like you said, it all started as a young girl at 3 years old. I was in India at that time. I had my own family, and I was trying to save my mother from a house fire. My dad, he was drunk and passed out, unresponsive, and I remember just hearing my mother scream and yell, and I didn't know what to do. I just didn't want her to be in pain, so I felt like I needed to help her out. So I went and tried to wake up my dad, like just nudging him, and he was just unresponsive. So I felt like I needed to do what was best. So I just went and hugged her as tight as I could, and she was trying to push me away and didn't want me to get hurt. But like in my mind, I was like, okay, well, this hug should help comfort you, because usually when a child gets hurt, a parent is usually there to hug them, nurture them, and the pain usually just goes away. And that's exactly what I did. I just hugged her and was hoping for the pain to go away. and it just never did. And soon the flames just came up on me. So I got burnt, and I didn't react. I just kept hugging her tighter. Figured like if she's gonna keep screaming, I'll keep screaming, and we screamed together, and that kind of woke up my dad. And next thing I knew, I was in the hospital. I was in the hospital, and at the time, where I grew up, we lived in like a poor area in a really, really big, well-known city, and we were like technology wasn't as advanced, so I didn't have any sort of numbing agent to
Mhm.
numb like any of the burns, but they had to take the debris of what the fire had like burnt my skin and my clothing. They had to like scrub that out. So I remember being placed in this gigantic bathtub. Well, it was pretty big for me as a 3-year-old. And they
Mhm.
just took the scrubby thing and just scrubbed my back and my legs, and no numbing pain reliever, anything. Like I just felt it. And that was worse than being caught on fire because
Yeah, that doesn't
you
seem like
know,
the appropriate medical treatment for the situation for
no,
a burn. Maybe it's just they just didn't know what the standard was.
who knows? And I think there was a lot of like, I'm sure like technology wasn't as advanced at that time. And again, like I said, we were in a poor area. But yeah, so they just had to scrub all that off of my back. And that was just more painful than the fire itself, because at a point when you're caught on fire, the pain, there's a pain that just kind of stops and just numbs when you're caught on fire. It just numbs, so it becomes bearable. But when you have like a little time to recover in that time when you're going to the hospital, your body it kicks in and it wants to go into a healing mode, right?
Mhm.
And the oxygen is coming through into your skin, and then having them scrub that was so painful. I'd rather be burned than having to deal with being scrubbed alive. So
And yeah, that's a lot of trauma for a young kid.
yeah. So then after they scrubbed me, they placed me on the cot. As you can see, my face and like the front part of my body isn't burnt, and so I had to lay flat on my stomach just to like let my back and my legs air dry.
Mhm.
Um, and my mom was wheeled up next to me, and she was covered from like the face down to her tips of her toes and just in scars. And she ends up passing away 3 days later after the incident. And my dad, he stops showing up to check up on me. He doesn't see how I'm doing, if I'm recovering okay, if and a child really needs somebody that can, like a parent there to help nurture you during something tragic that just happened to you.
Did anybody in your family come to see you, like your grandparents or uncles or aunts or?
So at first, they all did. So my parents in India had 9 children, and they did come see me like the first few days before my mom passed away. But after that, I don't know what had happened, but my dad just stopped showing up, and then everybody just stopped showing up. So I'm not sure if I think it was just probably the guilt of what had happened.
Mhm. Did he feel
And
responsible for the fire? Is that what the problem was?
I'm sure because he was drunk, he was passed out, he couldn't really help. He couldn't help my mom and I because he wasn't all there.
Mhm.
And so yeah, so he just stopped showing up, and that was the first time that I've ever felt rejection in my life, abandonment, and I never felt that before. And so, like being in that space of healing by myself as a 3-year-old was really hard. Because all I remember was my mom was just a really good mom, loving, nurturing, and from that being in that space and then going into a hospital where you're laying in on a cot. We're trying to recover. No one coming to check up on you. It's just really like a dark place. It's very lonesome. Well, after that, after recovering, I remember coming out of the hospital, going to a church. We were Catholic, so we went and prayed to Mother Mary, and I had to pay respect to my mom because I wasn't there at any of her service, but she passed away, and I was in my like a blue underwear, just reenacting like Mowgli in my blue underwear, going to because I'm still recovering,
Mm-hmm.
going to pay respect to my mom, and then right after, my dad takes me to the orphanage and puts me up for adoption. And so again, I felt abandoned one more time by my mom, by my dad. And that was just a really horrible feeling, knowing like I was so excited to come home, see my grandparents, see my siblings, just to be taken to the orphanage. So being in the orphanage for 2 weeks by myself was, I just felt alone because I didn't see any of my family again. And then my dad ended up putting three more girls up for adoption, which were my older sibling and my youngest little baby sister. And so in the in the adoption orphanage, we were groomed to be ready for our families in America. We were told, okay, we can't have to like leave our culture behind, and
Mm-hmm.
we focused on like just learning to fit into an American
So
society.
learning like how to be like an American, well, you know, English and losing your cultural heritage, but your own native language, any
Yep.
indigenous stuff that, you know, any cultural references, like, you know, most Americans probably aren't sensitive to that. Maybe at that time, weren't
Right,
sensitive, especially probably weren't sensitive, just wanted you to assimilate.
right, yeah. So yeah, so in that orphanage, I was able to see all these people coming in and out from like prospects that are wanting to adopt certain children, and we were able to watch them get gifts from these parents, and they were so excited for them. So it just became, there was a vibe where you were getting ready to want to go see your family
Mm.
in America,
Did you
and
really still like you're probably in shock from still, you know, healing, again, having that rejection from your family?
mhm.
'Cause was it that your father just couldn't like didn't know how to handle having children without your mother, or
I'm
was it
sure
something else?
I'm sure that has a lot to do with it, but I think a lot of it is probably guilt of him being drunk and not consciously aware to be able to help my mom and I when we were caught on fire,
Mhm.
especially when I was trying to wake him up. And so, like, him seeing me probably just brings back those reminders that he failed
Oh,
in
so you
many
didn't
ways.
want any evidence of the failure to be there because he actually kind of, you know, took responsibility and actually
Hmm.
that's a hard thing to do, and
It
not
really is.
everybody has the fortitude to do that. So I guess, you know, he just passed it
Yeah.
on.
Yeah, and like I really do feel bad for him because there's not a lot of like books out there at the time that really focuses on like abuse or like if you're going through certain trauma, like how to.
How
There's
to
not
do
like that
it.
one-on-one
Did you even
handbook.
have any counseling? Like,
Yeah.
was it all just medical treatment without kind of having trauma, psychological, sociological treatment? When do you
Mhm.
remember going to any kind of counselors during that period, or they just skip
Oh,
that?
absolutely not. No, I just went to the hospital, recovered, then thrown into the orphanage.
So
And I
nobody
think
had
that
any kind of insight to that.
say what?
Nobody had insight to like the fact that you need to heal psychological and sociological trauma. Nobody thought that that was important.
Yeah, yeah, no, and that's the thing. Those things, whenever anybody goes through any sort of like trauma, like what I went through, Like it's really important that you get that psychological help so then you can be able to overcome it and have like the healthy mindset to move forward. But yeah, no, I didn't have that. And I know for a fact my dad wasn't into that. We were really poor. And I think a lot of the reasons why he put me up for adoption was he probably couldn't manage all these kids at once
Mhm.
too. So I think that has a lot to do with it. So yes, so during my time in the orphanage, there was a couple times we did try to run away. My sister, my older sister that was in the orphanage with me, she was older. She kind of knew like um, the geographical areas of where we were at. So she actually, we took my little baby sister and we ran away home and we went home a couple times. We ran back home and my dad, he had to put us into the orphanage again. And the third time he took us to a completely different orphanage. And we tried one more time to run away and we were just confused and we were lost. We didn't know where we were at, and we ran into a cop that ended up taking us back to the orphanage. But yeah, no, it was at that moment when we realized that we couldn't go back home was when we just gave up and
You
said we
realize your
were,
father wasn't letting you come back home. He kept on
yeah,
sending you back.
yeah,
So there
exactly.
must have
So
been another rejection, just like the rejection you got from the, at the hospital when he didn't show up.
mhm. So then we just pretty much surrendered and just obeyed the rules of the orphanage and got ready to um, be adopted to a family in America, which we ended up. I got adopted to a family here in Utah um, in a ranching community. And my mom, my adopted mom, which I'll start calling her my mom, she was abusive and
Mhm.
emotionally, mentally, and physically abusive. And she wasn't that way when we first was adopted. She she kind of, I don't know, like I welcome me and my, so three of us got adopted into that same family.
Same family? Okay.
Yeah. So I was very fortunate to have two of my biological siblings, and my other sibling was adopted somewhere in Washington, I believe. But anyway, so it was really fortunate to have my two siblings with me. And the first 6 months were really well. And she just, I remember her like putting lotion on my back because my back would get really itchy. And I
Mhm.
thought that was really, that was the closest thing to having that love back into my life.
Like a
Is,
nurturing mother. Like you had
mhm,
like you lost your mother, your dad wasn't very nurturing. So that must have felt more like what you wanted.
yeah. And so we just felt really comfortable. And my one sister and I, we just really gravitated towards her and accepted the fact that she was going to be our mom. And we just really fit in well in within our family. But after, I would say after 6 months, my older sister, she had a hard time. She had a hard time for the fact that she had family in India and she didn't know what was going on. Like she couldn't
Oh, you
get,
oh, she had no communication with them, I guess.
yeah, and she didn't have the concept of like if she was going back to India or like what it was because she like was taken away from her home and placed into this family. And my mom, she didn't like that. She didn't know how to react to that. So she started becoming pretty abusive to her. And then because my sister, she just needed like some sort of an outlet for somebody to hear her
Mhm.
and to make it feel like okay, you're comfortable, you're safe here. But she didn't get any of that. She didn't get any sort of like any acknowledgement knowing that this was her place and she'll be fine. and a place for her to communicate. She didn't have that. So because of my sister would lash out, she would lash out and say, "You're not my mom. You're not my mom," and start like hitting her. My mom started treating me really awful, and I would get punished for every time my sister would lash out. So I would have to pick up rocks out in the field and fill it up in the pickup truck, and as a punishment, or I'd have to go get some wood and fill up so much, I don't know, like so many boxes of wood to excuse my sister's behavior.
So a lot of
And
punishment. So you get like, so instead of getting like love and affection and understanding, you're getting punishment because of what your sister had done. So you're being treated very harshly. Was anybody coming to check on you from any
mm-mm,
adoption agencies to see
no,
if there was any follow through?
no,
No.
no, no. So nobody was coming to check up on us, and so that was really hard. And so like my I need to tell a backstory about my family. My parents adopted 14 kids,
Wow.
a
So,
lot.
like, so is this the two of them with 14 kids?
Mm-hmm. Two of them with 14 kids. They had already had raised three boys by the time that I was adopted, and the rest of the nine children were adopted after they were kind of gone out of the home. Um, and so, I, what happened in the the family that they raised with the three brothers, there was always that system where there was the scapegoat, there was a golden child, and there was kids that are just wanting their mom's love and attention, affection, and they didn't get that. So with those three boys, they also were in an abusive home lifestyle as well. And so it wasn't like it came by a surprise when those things were happening with the rest of the nine kids. My mom became really abusive in many ways, to the point where she would um, she would strip my older sister and physically just molest her in front of me and touch her aggressively. And this is the time that she is like hitting puberty and she's developing. And I remember just feeling so like scared, and I didn't know what she was doing. Like she she went and attacked her very forcefully and aggressively, and was pulling her hair, just all these things, and touching her inappropriately. And I just remember thinking like, I didn't go help my sister, and I feel so ashamed because I really should have went and helped her. But at the same time, I also knew like anything that my sister did, I was going to get punished.
Yeah, you were in
So,
a very abusive situation where they had the control.
mhm,
And if you have adults that are in control and there's nobody monitoring them, that's what seems amazing to me, that they have that many adopted children and nobody had ever like checked to see if it's appropriate for this family to have children.
right, yeah. Well, the thing is, they are well known in the community and very well respected. They volunteered in their in schools and church activities. So yeah, so they had the stature of like looking
On the
presentably.
outside, it looked good, but in the
Mhm.
inside, if anybody had done any real work,
Yes,
they
there
would have
was.
found out that the outside image is not what the inside image is.
Yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, so I just felt really bad that my sister just kept getting hurt. And I remember telling myself, like, telling God, like, I don't ever want to grow up. I don't want to be a woman. I don't want to grow breasts. Like, please, because I just didn't want to go through what my sister went through. And
Mm-hmm.
so, lucky for me, I didn't hit puberty until I was a senior in high school. And I think that was a gift that God gave me because I was really terrified with what my mom was doing. Um, and and so there was a lot of times where I had to like fight with my adopted sister. She's the golden child. Her name was Molly, and she was in the same age level and grade level as I was. So it was really hard to even like excel or even do well with just having her appearance of just being like treated really well. She was smart, you know.
So they
And
had
so,
favorites. So they had like favored children, and then you had to
mhm,
be having the comparison trap of the
yeah,
favored child versus the unfavored children.
yeah, exactly. And so when I remember when I first was adopted, I struggled with learning because I came with like 8 different dialects, and then English was on top of it, and that was really really hard for us. And so I had really good teachers that would stay after school and kind of help me
Mm-hmm.
learn and take the time to really like teach us. And we really did uh, learn pretty quickly. But I still wasn't like I had dyslexia. And
Yeah.
so things that I would think would process differently in my writing or what would come out.
Did they
And
recognize that in school and actually help you, or did they was
no,
undiagnosed?
no, I didn't have any diagnostics. I didn't have any sort of help with that, like any sort of testings. But yeah, it's just my teachers. I think they kind of knew what was going on. My dad knew, and he was dyslexic, and he would say that I hadn't. So he was aware of it. But like even with my dad, he was being controlled by my mom.
Mm-hmm.
So he really couldn't do a lot of things for us, um, just just because he would get punished for
Oh wow.
whatever.
So she
Yeah,
was kind of like she was really controlling the whole situation, very toxic type of person.
he
And
really was.
yeah, it just seemed like you were in a very toxic maybe it was I don't know, like in terms of like the situation, you're not catching a break at all. I mean, you came from India out of that fire with your father
Mhm.
abandoning you, sending you to an orphanage, which wasn't ideal, and then you have parents that weren't well screened by the American system at
Right.
all either, and then a school that didn't fully identify your dyslexia. So it seems like
Mhm.
there's a lot of missteps that society is not really, community is not
Yeah.
helping.
Yeah, so yeah, so like during school, my teachers would tell my mom during our report and say, "Yeah, you know, Avonley is failing. Here's the Fs, you know." And then I would compare it to my sister, and she would have all A's. She was like top notch. Everything was perfect with her. And my teacher would tell my mom like, "Hey, Evelyn's struggling here. She's going to need some help." So instead of having getting the help that I actually needed to get up to speed with my classmates, she ends up putting me down in the basement and just gives me lessons, extra lessons that I need to do because I wasn't um, catching up. But she would never explain the process. She would never explain like the instructions of how to solve certain problems and read. And so I was just down in the basement after I went to school all day, go down in the basement all evening. And if I didn't complete it at a certain time, then I wouldn't eat. And
There's
so
nothing to punish. It's a very corporal punishment or a punishment type of idea. Like that's not how you teach children.
mm-mm,
And so, but they're in the mindset, and that might have been generational mindset, the way they were taught. You know,
probably.
probably it was handed down from the grandparents and their great grandparents. It's something that modern psychology and sociology determined. That's not how you teach children. In today's world, 21st century world, there's a lot of knowledge about what you should do and what you shouldn't do. But it seems
Yeah.
like you were caught in this zone, this void of either that not being understood or the community not following that.
Yeah, exactly. And that was really hard for me. I remember just crying a lot, not because I didn't understand what the concept was. I'm a visual learner,
Hmm.
and if you could just teach me, show me, I can pick things up quite easily. But she didn't take the time to even like sit down and help me out, and that was really hard. But I was a really good student. I never took like what was happening in my um, um, at home into my school life. I just kept that separate until I
Hmm.
got to high school, and then a lot of things started affecting me. But during that time, my mom ended up adopting two more kids. When I think I was probably like 4 years into being in the family, they adopted two more children, and this was really sad because after 6 months of them being adopted, my younger brothers, um, they started raping my two siblings that were just adopted. And I remember they would take them into the woods, and I just knew that something was wrong. So I went and told my mom. uh, I remember like pacing back and forth. She was in her bedroom, and I was pacing back and forth thinking, okay, she doesn't believe me on anything, but this is actually really serious. And it's not okay. Because I grew up on a ranch. I know how that stuff work. So when my brothers were doing stuff like that to my sisters, I knew that wasn't okay. Like
Hmm.
you don't do that. And so yeah, I finally went and knocked, had the courage and knocked on her door, and I told her like what was happening. I said, "There's a big concern. You need to check up. You need to help my sisters." And she was like, "Okay, no," and she asked me to leave. She's like, "Just leave. Go to your room."
Totally dismissed it. She never looked into it.
Yeah, she didn't. Is Yeah, and so they ended up raping my siblings all like their entire like high school, even onto high school. And one of my sisters, ended up getting UTI really bad, and so she would end up peeing her pants. And my mom wouldn't let her wash her clothes in the washer. She would make her wash it in the bathtub at first until it got really smelly. And some of the kids complained, like, "Oh no, we don't want to shower with her smelling that way." And then so my mom ended up having her take her clothes to a creek, even in the wintertime, and wash her clothes and wash her bedding and sheets and just have them hang up to air dry. So that was just really hard to like watch and fathom just the degree that my mom was allowing a lot of these abuse to accumulate in our family household, and how she was keeping some of these kids just in, like, even though like my the golden child was the favorite, she was actually being groomed to keep what was happening in our house hush hush. And
Well, it
so
seemed like if they had a prominent role in the community, they were never
mhm,
going to really reveal anything negative.
yeah, so yeah, there's just a lot of things that were just constantly happening, and I never ended up getting a break. It was just one thing after another. I remember when I got to high school, it was middle school, but we just had high school then. So from 7th grade to 12th grade, it was high school for us. So I was in, I believe, 7th grade, and my mom would not let me. We were doing some sort of like church service where we had to go out of town and do some. It's called baptizing for the dead for in the LDS community. So the youth went 3 hours away to this temple and did the service. And after the service, my mom gave each one of us like $30 just to go shopping. And I didn't have any, she didn't give me any money. And I just felt so embarrassed. Everybody was buying things and I really wanted something. And I ended up stealing a shirt. And coincidence, it just said angel on it with wings. And I thought it was just the cutest little thing. And I felt really close and connected to it because I really needed, I was really emotionally like strained at this point. And so seeing that shirt really just gave me a little hope, but I ended up stealing it. And my mom, she, so they ended up catching me and they called my mom and said, hey, your daughter stole a shirt. What can we do? Just let's not have that happen anymore. And my mom refused to just let go. And she said, no, I want her to go through the whole process. She needs to go to court. She needs to do service projects, do whatever she can. So then I came home and I was just literally humiliated because she was just like on my case, humiliating my siblings. And then I'm so sorry. So when I went to school the next day, everybody just like shunned me because my sisters and brothers just kind of said how awful I was and that I was a thief. And so I really had to just go through the whole process of, I'm really sorry.
No, that's what you went through. So
Yeah. So I had to go through like court and being humiliated, even though I never really did stuff like that. I just wanted just like an item, just like everybody else did. And it's almost like she always set me up to like have me do something awful, and then place me on a position where I just looked like a bad person. And then she looked like a really good person, like, hey, I'm just teaching my daughter to be a good person and teaching her like good standards and stuff. So even though like I learned a great deal about it, but then a year later we did the same session, but this time my brother, he ended up stealing a watch. And instead of him going to court and doing like the same thing that my mom put me through, the one that raped my sister, she ends up saying that I was the one that taught him how to steal, and that and he just got off as consequent, like nothing had happened. And so I think like, so there's just a lot of like mental abuse that I didn't have like an outlet to express like the concerns that I was going through. Like some of my sisters did reach out to other people like the cop and the bishop to let them know what was going on, but they just, no, your mom is a really good mom. Like I've grew up with her son, their oldest son, and there's nothing going on. So they just kind of dismissed it just because my mom was pretty well known in the community. Now I look back and I say, like, is it really was it worth going through what I went through? And I would say yes, in many ways, because it taught me to be more humble. It taught me to be like grateful for the things that I do have in my life. And like comparing myself to my sister and the other girls, the other kids that were my mom's favorite, they all struggle with like being independent. They have to like constantly make sure that they're pleasing my mom.
Oh, even
And
to this day, they're still
to this
pleasing
day,
your mom, but you're more independent. You were able to break free because if you're not the favorite, you're kind of like the black sheep. You're the
yeah,
outsider. That
yeah,
actually can, you can, if you survive it, it'll actually strengthen you. Things that don't kill you strengthen you. Like
yeah,
so. So
exactly.
if you get that independent streak where you're not like, she's not giving you any reason to be like owe her anything.
Right.
So it's like so you could have you could be a free thinker. You don't have to be under her thumb.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I feel like that I'm really free from that, and that I can really like help people in like a more organic way. Whereas my siblings, um, they are very toxic now.
Yeah,
They,
they're just in that. I mean, if you're in that toxic like environment, you're gonna it's like this law of attraction. Like if you're
Mhm.
around toxicity and you never get away from it, you're gonna radiate that toxicity. If
Yeah,
if you if
exactly.
you if you can get away from it and you're not really aligned to it, then you're going to go to a different direction. You're going to end up being in a different place. You're going to attract different things. So you're going to be moving toward a more positive outcome. So that's
Yeah,
where you are now, right?
yeah, yeah. So yeah, you're exactly right. And it's kind of like what you were saying earlier. When we don't fix the traumas in our life, we pass that on to our children, and it becomes like a generational trauma and like curses. And I just chose, like, I guess I didn't choose to like break it. It's just the way she treated me. It just got to that point where I was done,
Yeah.
and I recognized it. What she was doing was not okay. It was abuse, and that is as as much as everybody was. A lot of people were like covering her, making her, praising her for all the good deeds that she's doing for the community. I just knew that she was she was not that,
Yeah. It was like
and
there's this surface picture. There's kind of take a picture of everybody. In the picture, you all could be smiling, but like behind the smiles, like you knew what was really going on.
mm-hmm,
And the thing is like people are so superficial sometimes
yeah,
that eventually there are laws about child abuse. There's understandings of like people who have learning disabilities, understanding of like norms
mm-hmm,
that like doesn't matter if this person has a reputation. You should actually go and still have a child person like services person assess the kids psychologically.
absolutely,
So you don't actually, because if you ask them if it's everything's okay, they're probably going to be under a fear, and they're not going to say they're okay. But if you have a child psychologist, they would actually be able to pick up even if the kid says they're okay, that they're not okay, and
right.
and they just weren't doing that work from what I can hear. Like that wasn't being done because there was no intervention.
Yeah, there absolutely wasn't. And my parents did foster a couple people as well. Not around the time I was adopted, but with my older brothers, they fostered a couple people. And even from what my dad was explaining, um, it was not like a really good situation. And there was just a lot of like trauma. My dad has passed away, and I feel like I can now like talk about my story because um, my as much as like I love my dad and he was a safe place, he really needed to step
Step
it
up,
up on his
step it
role.
up. Yeah, I mean, well, he is probably under a fear
Hmm.
dynamic because if he wasn't under a fear dynamic, then he would have stood up. So
Yeah.
there was something that was kind of keeping him from protecting you.
So like yeah, so my dad, he didn't actually want a lot of us kids. He's mentioned that, and that's something I've always been really grateful that he was open to. But he's always gotten to the point whenever he adopted any one of us, he ended up becoming that role model of a person that you could go to if you wanted to be loved. Like he would give you that love. He didn't care like what you've done. He would just tell you you loved him. He
Hmm.
loved you, and it was. I think that was really what's helpful to many of us that were
Get you
struggling.
through it. So at least you had
Hmm.
some, like he was at least giving you that level,
Yeah,
where your mother was so toxic, from what I can hear.
yeah.
Um,
So, like my dad, like I said, we grew up on a ranch, on a cattle ranch, and he had a lot of land, and he worked really hard to get his ranch because that's all he wanted to be is be a cowboy and have cattle. And he ended up able to raise enough money to get all this land. And I think that's one of the things he always said. He wished he would have been able to help us, but he was afraid that my mom would take the ranch from him because she used that as some a
Leverage.
threat.
Oh,
Hmm.
like get a divorce and she get all the land.
Yeah, or just because she also was doing the financial part, so she knew what was coming in, where the money was going.
Oh, she's running the books. She's running the financials.
And that was one of the things that he's always regretted was like trusting. It's really sad because you should trust your spouse
Oh, yeah.
en- enough to feel like they can take care of that and they're not going to stab you in the back or hold something against you to
Mm.
yeah. But yeah, so there was like stuff like that. My mom would write. I remember she written like a post-it and posted it down in the basement, and it said, if if mom and dad ever gets divorced, it's because of you, us three girls that were adopted. um
She's always using a power dynamic in a very negative way.
hmm
Like
and
she's like that's just so toxic. I mean,
it was,
they're
it
like
really was.
because
it,
allowing the rapes, allowing abuse, being abusive, not listening, not really nurturing or teaching. Just it sounds like punishment and just do it because I say to do it
right, yeah, yeah,
without like,
exactly. And it was exactly like that, and it's just really hard because she wasn't really there to help us succeed or help us to even grow. It was more of like what she could control and what society would look at her. Because anytime we talked about it, and I got really shy to the point where um, I wouldn't. I would get excited to go out to outings, town outings, and they would have food, and I would get really excited because there was many days that I would not go with. I would go without food because she would withhold food from me.
punishment, right? Well,
Hmm. And
that's
so I
dangerous for your
remember,
development to do that.
yeah, and I remember like, oh, me and my sisters would like get so excited. We would talk together and say, yeah, we're gonna go to this dance. And we're gonna eat all the food and fill our tummies, um, just fill our tummies. And when we got there, I really wouldn't eat all the food because I was afraid people were judging me that I was
Mm.
taking too much. So I would only take like a piece of cracker and just be so disappointed in myself because I didn't have the courage to go up again. But I was just so worried about what other people thought of me. And I ended up developing a disorder, anorexia, in
Mm-hmm.
many ways, because
But
you're
your
trying to.
relationship with food was not correct. You know, if your food is being used as punishment, it's being used to shame, then you're going to associate food in a bad way, which is not like good for your development, which seems like that's what happened.
Yeah, that is what happened. And so in my book, Strength of Scars, I go into more of the details about my story. I actually ended up writing 4 books,
Oh, wow.
uh, and the first book, you can see it's all about the innocent of a little child and not understanding what the term abuse was and being in an abusive home. You could see the patterns and the symptoms of it. And then the second book is called Letting Go. I haven't published the rest of the
The other
three
books.
books.
That's the first book is The Strength of Scars, and the other three
Mhm.
aren't out yet.
Yeah, and then the second book is letting go. It's when I realized, when I got married, started having kids, is when I noticed like what my mom was doing was abusive, and I started taking action and started looking inward to heal myself, because I felt like it was really important that I don't pass what was happening, that my mom did to me, to my children, because I really didn't want that, but I was really hurting inside, and there's a lot of things that were triggering me, and I really needed to go inward and fix myself. So the second book is really about letting go, and I use this method called the I shed method, where you have to go inward and identify the point, and then go through the shedding process, which is, you survived the situation, and you need hope in order to, like, overcome any of the traumas in your life. You need to have like some sort of hope to lean towards on. And then empowerment was the next one, feeling empowered that you can conquer this. And then discipline, you got to repeat this phase over and over again until it no longer serves you. And then you go from old to gold. And so that's my second book. And then the third book is called It's Just Temporary. It's just the seasons in our lives. As you look at my first and second book, you'll start seeing the attitudes kind of changes in the way I handle situation. I just start seeing it as something temporary. Like, I'm not going to hold it against me. I'm going to do the very best that I can to overcome any challenges in the best possible way. And like the book says, it's just temporary. It's just seasons in our life. Things come and go. And then the fourth book is the book that really focuses on the different levels of abuse, and um, how a lot of times we become in denial of any abusive situation. And that's what holds a lot of us back, because we don't want to feel like, hey, we're gone through this trauma, we've gone through this abuse, and we just don't want to feel like that's our identity. And so we don't acknowledge it. But so in this fourth book, it's called Going from Old to Gold, and it's where I explain how God refines you. When you're put in the hottest point of the fire, He's burning the impurities out of you. And so that's kind of like the abuse, when you're going inward, identifying the core part of you that's hurting, and you're trying to fix those things. You're cleaning up the impurities, and you're polishing that up so then you can become a nice, beautiful gem. And that's my fourth book. So I'll be publishing those out once I feel like it's the right timing.
So, in this process of writing the book, did you go through counseling, or is the book writing process your healing process, or did you work with anybody, any
I
counselor,
didn't.
to kind of go through this process?
Yeah, I didn't go through any counseling at all. I have always been afraid of, counseling, just because I think when I was a child, when I saw that my sister was trying to seek for help a few times, and I've asked for help a couple times, and I was really nervous, and just just being really shy, that took a lot of bolts for me to even ask for help. And seeing that I didn't get the help that I needed, I just, I don't know. This is something I would never suggest my readers, or like the followers that are listening to your platform to do, because it's really important you get professional help, because that will help like speed up the process faster. Yeah, this is just what happened with me. I didn't get the professional help that I needed. But I did what I did. I read a lot of like inspirational, uplifting self help books to start, I guess, rewiring my brain,
Hmm.
and start taking action. I ended up doing a lot of journaling. So as I was going through these process of like forgiveness and healing, I was actually writing a lot of my stories down.
Yeah, you're
Um,
doing like the inner work, like the looking glass self is this idea the Victorians had. It's
mhm,
like in order to really get to the root cause of any problem, you got to do some self analysis. You got to go inward,
yeah,
and then the journaling, and then the writing, like being a creative, the creative process is very cathartic. So if you once you go decided to like diary it and journal it, and then turn it into a book and
mhm,
actually do that, reading and analysis and like analyzing what had gone on in your
yeah,
life and then making assessments. That is a process that actually can go toward like your therapeutic like healing. Like so I think in doing what you're doing it at your own pace of how you want to do it. So
yeah. Yeah, exactly. And it is very therapeutic and it is very healing. So I would always suggest if you don't have the means to get a counselor, like really look up people that are have a field in helping people because they have a lot of platforms and like plethora of information that could help with self development, self healing, and those are really, really good to acknowledge in your healing journey. Um, and then, yeah, so yeah, I did end up writing all those books, and I actually wasn't going to publish my book at all. It was a few years later when I had the strong feeling where God was like, write your book, you know, because I went through that forgiveness process and I forgave my mom, but I was done with it, but he wasn't. He was going to use my story to help other people. So that's what I'm doing. It's very vulnerable as you can see. I'm still healing. I'm still
yeah,
like hurting. Um, but one of the things I do want to tell your learners is one of the miraculous things I've learned from healing, and I'll show it as an example. My back, when I was burnt during the time that I was living with my parents in Utah, my back was really like a hard shell, like a rhino. Rhino. It didn't have any feeling, no, it wasn't sensitive to any like touch or feelings. I could poke a needle into my back and not know, I not have any sort of
your
feeling.
nerves got damaged. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't until I started when I once I got married and I met my husband and I truly understood what love was and I started doing self work on myself. I held a lot of baggage on my back.
Hmm.
And so I was not giving my body a chance to heal properly because I didn't have the proper tools. I didn't have the proper love. But when I got that, my body just accelerated and it started healing. And so I can take a tiny pin now and you can tap me in the back and
You
I
can feel
can,
it.
the nerves or endings have come back. So what I'm trying to say is just even though you guys might not have physical damage does not mean that your body is actually healing.
Hmm.
You don't know how your body is going to be reacting and how it's going to heal. And so just be patient with yourself and always like take care of yourself and nurture yourself.
I think your story is really incredible, and it kind of goes toward the vulnerability of creativity. Like so, like if you are authentic and you actually tell your story and be willing to be vulnerable, then it's it's authentic to the
Mhm.
audience. It resonates. People will pick up the vibe. It's like a law of attraction. People will go toward something that they can understand and they can feel is real. And so I think when you made a decision to give it to the world, that's very important because some things like the stories you're telling, they need to be told because there are other people in the world who've probably gone through the same thing and probably think they're alone. And when you put a story out that shows, somebody else could have gone through something similar or something different, but like to show that happens, that you're not the only one that's experienced it, and there's light at the end of the tunnel. And so I think that's very important that people like yourself tell these stories, and I really commend you for having the courage to do that.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, that's my ultimate goal, even though like it's very vulnerable and very hard for me. I'm doing it because there are a lot of people hurting all over social media. You could see, you're scrolling, you could see somebody is aching from like trauma or a sad situation. We just never know like what people are going through. And so if my story can make a difference or even give them an encouragement to stand up for themselves and make changes, like I think that's worth it. Like I'm willing to be vulnerable and express my stories to be uplifting for people that are damaged.
I want to let people know we have your links here, your website, where I'm sure that's where people can get your book, right?
Yes. Well, yeah, they could get it there, or they can also get it just like on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Walmart, just a lot of the online retailer.
Well, I want to let people know these hyperlinks for your Instagram and your website are clickable in the podcast description. We've been live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Kick. We will be on all the major platforms like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Video Podcast, iHeartRadio, Amazon Podcast. By tomorrow, we'll send you a landing page link so people can use that for your audience. We'll send that to you. And I want to thank you for being a guest on the Family Electric Go Show and telling your story today. And thank you and have a great night.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.